Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Friday Night Live, the reflection card episode. All right, so this is a half-page card right here, 8.5 by 5.5, or 8.25 by 5.5, and no, 8.5 by 5.5. Sorry, I haven't done one of these in a while. And then this is a piece of the semi-gloss, and this is a piece of kind of reflected silver foil. You want it nice and mirrored if you ever get this type right here. There are certain foils that are more of like a brushed aluminum, but kind of a more reflective one works the best for that mirrored look. And then you're just placing it in a 8.5 by 11 folded piece of cardstock. Could be any color, but the black works really good for me because when you butt these two pieces up against one another, if it's black down there in that fold right there, it doesn't show as much if you know, as if it were something lighter like white or something like that. That being said, if you use a lighter tone for your card base right here, I'd recommend taking a Sharpie pen or something like that, and just before you mount your reflective portion of this construction here, put like a Sharpie marker down this edge right here just so that's nice and dark, so you won't get this really light separating kind of visual in between your top card and that reflected lower portion. All right, so anyways, let's get started on this. I have a general kind of idea in mind for this area down here. I'm going to put some of these boulders right here and like some grass right in here. And then we'll add in some pumpkins, okay? So I think with those pumpkins in mind, those will be right on the water's edge. Then I'm thinking about having some fall foliage types of visuals in here. And then we'll have this dancing skeleton right amongst the, whatever, the patch, pumpkin patch. And I thought that might be kind of interesting. I haven't kind of formulated it completely in my head yet. But here's the thing. Okay, so if I stamp out all my imagery down there, I mean, that's something that I could do, but I'm going to have a lot of tone in here. So what I was thinking about doing was adding some preliminary tones in here first. Hello, Joni and Lynn, how are you today? I want to get to, I don't know if you've used that foil that I sent to you, but I want you to do some foil reflection cards. Like I said, unless you've already given it a shot, but that'll be my next kind of lesson for you. There's a lot of lessons out there already on the thing, but I would, I don't know, work it with the images that you have. Okay, so that being said, on toning, I could add my images first, but I'm going to use a lot of tones in here. So sometimes it's better to lay down some of those initial tones first, stamp the imagery right over the top of it to retain that nice crisp impression and avoid any potential smears. That being said, I often put my imagery down and I just kind of tone over the top of it. I would let it set up for a little bit, but I think in this case, being that it's a live stream and we're not going to sit around waiting for it to, dry for a little bit, I think I'd lay these down first. I think that might actually kind of expedite the entire process as well. I'm trying to think about kind of a color scheme here. I'm going to have some warm tones in here with those pumpkins. We'll add some color to them, but we'll have it a little bit dreary in the spirit of the subject matter. So I think I'm going to start off with a little bit of a warm tone right here as my base colors, okay? So we'll get some of these going in here. We'll have it a little bit streaky just so that we get some variation going in here. Okay, you can use it like a little brush kind of application like this. You can also tap like that for some different textures. You can use a little bit of a swirling motion if you want. Use all three, maybe. All right, so we have that right there. It's a little bit of texturing going on. This is a semi-gloss paper, so it's somewhat absorbent, but it is a cardstock, so that it has that clay coating on here. And this Ranger inks in general, just a lot of inks are kind of thick. Memento, Ranger. So you have time to manipulate it. You don't really have so much time to apply it and completely remove it, okay? But you can kind of move it around a little bit while it's on there, especially when you're using a nice slathering of it like this. Hello, Linda and Cynthia, how are you? All right. So we have that down there. I think that'll be a pretty decent base layer for me to build on, okay? I want to go generally into the cooler spectrum here, but having that base layer of warmth will kind of give all of my cooler tones, or whatever colors you add on over the top of it, a little bit of a glow by having that warmth underneath it all, okay? Now, that being said, I mean, if you went with, you know, cooler tones or something like that, or grayscale, just like this, you can warm it up after. It doesn't have to be the base layer, but it's just as long as it's integrated in there. By the way, I don't know if you can see this right here, but I colored that little rose there red just to make it, I don't know, like a really subtle little detail in here. I thought that was kind of fun to do. I know they, you know, if you go to like a store and there's like Halloween types of props or anything like that, you know, those roses are always going to be black. But I mean, you can even tell that that was a kind of a flower there, you know, like a little stem, single stem rose. So I did it with that little green leaves and a red rose right there. And plus the bride likes red rose, even though she, even after she passed, she didn't change her preference from red to black. But it's just kind of one of those little elements where that one element in the entire scene is, you know, that one little rose right there. Again, it's kind of a subtle little, whatever, prop in there. So it's something that if you gave it to someone and if they looked at it repeatedly, you know, and kind of looked at it closer, they'd probably notice it. Otherwise, I don't think they would ever notice it. But we, as the whatever, you know, the creators of the piece. I'm looking for my re-inker for my Linden Fog. I just used that. I thought on that large piece right there. I don't see it. Okay, Peach Bellini, Aqua. All right, it's got to be around here somewhere. Sorry. But if you're a stamper, you know what I'm talking about when you can't find something that's probably right in front of your face, or you use it and then you can't find it, like, you know, like a minute later. I have like clutter. When I can't find stuff, that's when it occurs to me, okay, it's time to kind of tidy up my desk here. And it might be time. All right. Huh. It's probably, I have all these bottles of ink right on my desk, kind of out of sight right here, like this. And then I have some kind of just loose. All right, we're switching up here. I'll just go straight on with the Ocean Aqua then. And I'll see if I have a gray, like a Marvy gray here. Salvia blue. Here, I'll switch up here. The aqua's going to be a little bit too thick. Oh, here it is right here. I don't know. I was thinking that London Fog was in a bottle like this size, but it's in a real small one here. Anyway, okay, those were other re-inkers. Ranger. This one's Memento, so a little bit smaller. I always say this. If you ever are getting certain types of inks. Now, I have a London Fog in pad form, like this, but I don't really need it because I'm only using that color. It's so light. I'm not stamping out imagery in this color, okay? And that's what you need a pad for. But if you're just applying ink like this or on whatever applicators that you happen to use, you can just get the re-inker for it. You know, the re-inker is going to have a lot more ink in it than the pad. And they generally cost about the same. And then the re-inkers don't take up very much space on your in your work area. So you don't need the pad and a re-inker. A lot of people get the pad and re-inker, but like I said, unless you're stamping out imagery with those colors, if you're just using it to ink things, to tone things, and to re-ink your applicator with, unless you just want you want the pad and and the re-inker. But if, I don't know, if it's going to come down to, this or that color with the pad and re-inker, why not just get, just the re-inker for it and get more colors, or have more space for, you can get like 20 of these little re-inkers and just in a really small area in your work area. But anyways, that's the strategy that I do these days with a lot of colors. A lot of new colors that I'm getting, I don't bother with the pad. That's with dye-based inks. I don't know. I mean, with something like a pigmenting pad or something like that, maybe not. Okay, so that's the London Fog over the top of that Peach Bellini, right? Was that the color we used? Yeah, Peach Bellini. So the Peach Bellini doesn't have to be Peach Bellini. You can use like a distress, like I always say, the antique linen or something like that, or just any lighter tone. Warm tone works great. Okay. Hello, Bill. Yeah, they run off with stuff. Someone stole the London Fog, I thought. All right, let's go on to some of the Salvia blue, which is just a light blue. A good substitute, maybe better, is tumbled glass. A lot of people have tumbled glass distress ink pads, or that color from the distress ink. An equivalent in Memento could be Summer Sky. Okay. I mean, there's a lot of other brands out there. Those are just the ones that I happen to know or have myself. All right, so that we're kind of transitioning it here, right? Transition your shadows, your lighting, things like that. Darker on the perimeter, so you start on the perimeter to add that tone, okay? Get the feel of that. Okay, now I'm going to leave it a little bit lighter down here because I think that's where a lot of those pumpkins are going to go. But we'll make this area down here where water's edge meets the water. We'll make this a little bit darker. I'll add my imagery in there too, and we'll be able to see how dark we want to take that area. But this area in general, this would make it like a really nice sky too. I mean, I'm not going to do it here because we have other plans for this background, but you can create all kinds of different like transitioning skies like that. Doesn't that look like you're looking out, if you put like an island or something right in here, that would be a really tranquil looking kind of backdrop for whatever imagery you want to use in here. But just, I don't know, what was that? That was 3 different colors in here. So you can do these really nice types of backgrounds. It's almost, akin to like oil paint, or I don't know, maybe this one would be more, akin to like watercolors or something like that. All right, let's see if I can make any kind of tonal difference. Trying this other gray. This gray right here from Marvy is a little bit more neutral. It's not too much darker though. And I was kind of hoping it would be a little bit darker, but this paper is really wet right now with all the inks that I've added in here. And so a lot of this ink isn't applying. This is kind of the value of it right here, just on a white piece of paper. But as you can see, as you're adding it in here, unless I tap it, and build up some beads of ink, if I do this, it's just kind of, it's staining it very, very lightly like that. You can see the neutral kind of tone of it. It's not quite as, it doesn't have that temperature in it, but you can see like that. This really makes it easy to blend. I can use a horrible technique like that, and it just really blends in really nicely if you get those base colors going in there, so you'll never have a hard time. You can even see my fingerprints right here. But you just blend it right in like that, and it's really easy to manipulate. But if you want to go darker a little bit faster, it's a little bit kind of moist, so it's not accepting the ink. So it's like a, there's a benefit to it in terms of ease of application and blending. But if you want to go darker and kind of make the darkening process a little bit more expedient, then that's working against you. But, you can heat set this and take out a lot of the moisture, and it'll apply and absorb into your paper faster. But I generally like to go, I don't know, I like it a little bit moist and not completely dry, because I like the fact that I can just keep blending really gracefully. And that's all to do with those first couple colors that are on there. Hello, Nwala, how are you? Good to see you. All right, let's see here. I like that background in there. I don't know if I might not go really super dark. Maybe it's more of like a dusk type of thing, I think. I think that would be more in the spirit of the piece, rather than saying that's like a sunrise or something, like dawn or something like that. Let's see here. I happen to have this stamp right here that's out still. I think I'm going to add in some slight texturing in here. Let's go with this gray, I think. Okay. I mean, you can add this in darker if you want to. I'm going to blot it off around the edges a little bit, even though it does transition. I'll kind of put in some streaks in here too. I think my pad is falling apart. Was that the one? It's kind of crumbling. A lot of my super old pads are, their days are numbered. I got a little crumbling right there. Yeah, on my gray here. Let me see. This is probably a 30-year-old pad. All right, I said I don't usually use that London fog. We're going to employ the London fog here for an impression. It's going to be a little bit lighter, but we'll see if we can get some of that texture on there. Okay, so it'll be a little bit of a transitioning texture in the background. We're going to have a bunch of stuff stamped over the front of it, but I thought it'd be good just to create a little bit of a differentiation between this area up here and this area down below. But if it's a little bit too much, what we do is we just go in here and we can just add in a little bit of texture like this, and my impression is still a little bit moist, but you see how that kind of blended in like that? And that's the benefit of adding in those base layer colors. A lot of people, it's a little bit of a different technique. We're used to coloring, but we're not used to kind of moistening an area for the sake of some other thing that we're going to be doing later. Meaning, stamp other imagery over the top of it or blend in darker colors, So but those base layer colors like that really sets us up. So look at that. I mean, if this was just, if we weren't doing a reflection card, you can put like, some sort of like islands out here. This could be sky, and this could be like water right down here. And I think if you put a sailboat right here, I think that'd be pretty interesting. I usually make darker backgrounds and stuff with more contrast, but I think this is really like serene looking. As a haunted scene should be. Nice serenity and peaceful, right? All right. Let's see. Let's start adding in our imagery into here. If you just joined in, this is going to be a reflection card, meaning we have a piece of the equivalent sized paper down here, but it's just the silver cardstock. Okay. And this is going to be reflected down there like that. Okay, like a little mirrored type of element. Right down here is going to be kind of a foundation. This is going to be my water's edge right here. I would normally stamp this up a little bit higher, but I want to have some pumpkins and things like that, and some other grasses, and a couple trees in here with some fall foliage on them. Or I don't know. We'll see about that fall foliage. I might go with like a leafless trees, and then I have these modelers, like railroad, model railroad kind of builders, fake dried leaves somewhere. Yeah. Trying to remember where they were. These ones right here. And I might add these like in the water, which I haven't done for a while, but I really like the look of those like that. Okay, so I'm just using about half of this. The stamp is Boulders with Lichen. I'm holding this down a little bit longer because this page is fairly moist, so dye-based inks work by staining whatever you're stamping them on. Okay, so the stain has to kind of penetrate the surface. All right. So if your surface is a little bit moist, as well as some of the pulp of the paper, just stamp and hold for a little bit longer. Just allow that ink to transfer in there. The thicker the ink that you're using, or brand of ink, and there's a lot of really thick dye-based ink pads out there, you might have to hold a little bit longer because it just takes longer for that ink to penetrate the surface, if it has a thicker whatever viscosity. I mean, we're not talking a huge amount more time, a few seconds. All right, so that's the water's edge right there, and we'll darken this in right in here. I like to get my bearings and see how things are looking right there, but see how that is right there? That's your water's edge, okay? You double your money's worth for your efforts because it reflects down below. It's kind of fun. Okay. Let's see here. Sedge filler. And we'll add in some grasses right here. My taller grass would probably be good right in here, but I don't have it out right now. And I don't want to go and find it. It's probably around here somewhere. Okay, there's some grasses right here. I'm going to oscillate some of the grasses with some of the pumpkins that we'll be adding in here, okay? Let's see, let's go a little bit higher right here. about like that. I just kind of stamped this kind of on the edge just to get the top portion of it right there. And then let's get into some of these pumpkins right here. Okay, this pumpkin imagery is, it's designed to look as though it's resting on some sort of harder surface, okay? So I'll do a little bit of masking, but just really minimally, okay? So, okay, so those pumpkins, that's as if they were stamping, you know, sitting on some kind of flat, just plane, okay? So we want it to look as though it's kind of amongst the grasses here. So I'll take this. Let me see if I can get a little bit more of a rounded. See, if you tear a paper towel one way, there's a certain grain to it, so it tore fairly straight. But if you rip it in another direction right there, it's going against the grain, so you get a little bit more of a varied edge like that. And I'll go with this varied edge like this. So what I'm getting at is hopefully these pumpkins look like they're kind of sitting in the grasses a little bit more here. You know, where the grasses are varied, okay? And stamping and holding a little bit longer, okay? I'm going to see the grasses kind of go up into there. There's not that shadow base in there. And I'll just come, it's like that. I'll just come over here. We'll add some more right over here. I do get some of those grass forms showing like it's going through the pumpkin because I didn't stamp the pumpkin first, mask it off, and then stamp the grass. But the way that I approach that, see, some of those grasses are going like right through there. But I'm going to tone, color, and shade the pumpkins anyway. So I'm not going to bother with doing a bunch of masking or anything like that. Okay, now here, I'm going to mask off these rocks right here, I think, and I'll put them right behind these rocks. Now that I see how these are looking right here, I think I might want some kind of right along those rocks. Like that, okay. And let's go for some smaller ones as well. Does anyone here still carve pumpkins, or when was the last time you've carved a pumpkin? I think I didn't carve a pumpkin probably for, I don't know if I even carved like pumpkins when I was in high school, but you know, we used to have those spirit weeks in high school, you know, where the different classes compete against one another. And of course, the freshmen are always going to be losing. But my one claim to Spirit Week fame was when it came to the pumpkin carving contest. I don't know, people, you know, a lot of classmates of mine knew I drew and, you know, stuff like that. So they had me do one of the, I don't know, whatever class, whatever the ASB, you know, people from our class say, hey, Kevin, can you do the pumpkin contest at whenever it was at lunchtime? And so it's like, okay, sure. And our pumpkin won. But I thought we were going to get decimated, though, because a lot of people like brought props and stuff for their pumpkins, like hats and stuff and sunglasses and everything like that. And I think, I mean, those ones might have looked, you know, cooler. But I think the thing is, I think I won because we actually carved, you know, a lot of the pumpkin. There was a lot of carving on mine where we didn't have like props and stuff. A lot of people just, you know, wrapped up their thing. I don't know. They had, you know, there was like bandanas on pumpkins and things like that. But that's what I'm assuming. I'm just, I speculated, oh, maybe we got it because, you know, I did the most carving on it or something like that. But I think that was the last time I carved a pumpkin, and for like, I don't know, the next 20 years probably, or something like that. All right, so see this right here? We put some of this grass right here. We got pumpkins in here, and then I put a little bit of grass behind it. I think that's all I'm going to go. I was thinking about going higher and putting these trees in here, but I think this is like a natural little opening stage for our kind of dancing skeleton. I wasn't like planning that out. That's just like, I don't know, that developed right there, and I'm thinking, okay, I think that'll work. But let me get my bearings here. Okay, so this skeleton's going to go right here, probably. It's kind of one of those things that's rule of thirds. Okay, so I'm putting them right, you know, approximately on that area. Maybe, but I also want these trees in here. Okay, so this is the winter ash tree, so I might have to move them over a little bit like this. Just because I don't want this winter ash like completely off the page like that. I don't know, maybe it'll look okay. Let's go with this. Let's add this one in here first on this side, because that's not really going to interfere with the skeleton too much if it does. Okay, masking off. I don't really need to mask. I guess I don't need to mask too much. I just need to mask around where that trunk is going to go. Let's see. All right. My bearings keep rolling away with many of my marbles. Now, what does that mean? You know, I think I did. I started carving again. I had like a dinner party over at my house, but I think I watched like Martha Stewart or something like that carving pumpkins, and she used like an electric drill with a big bit on there to drill like holes and punch holes through. And I thought, oh, that looks really cool. So I did that. So we used to create, or I do like pumpkins with that were just like for lanterns with a bunch of holes, you know, with a light inside. Okay, so we have that right there. And we'll put another one right over here, I think. I can use the smaller one too. Yeah, let's frame it off a little bit more evenly. If I did the smaller one, it would look like it's going back in the distance a little bit more, which would be good. But I think if I go taller with this, it'll frame off the piece a little bit better. And I don't want to put anything in here because we'll have that dancing skeleton, even though it'll be behind the skeleton. If I did that, I would have to stamp out kind of a smaller tree, but do it really, really lightly. Maybe that same gray of that sky in there. All right, I think my pad's getting a little bit dry here. Don't kind of over ink your pads when you ink up. Don't ink it up to like where it's like a brand new pad. Kind of keep it a little bit more medium, you know, or so. Anytime you're stamping out imagery that has a lot of detail in it, just so it doesn't get, it doesn't puddle up in those detailed areas, you know, with a super, super wet pad. Okay, let's see. I'm going to do this one off the page a little bit, just to vary it from the other side. Right over here. I don't want it too symmetrical, okay? This one's probably going to stamp out darker just because I re-inked it. This is a little bit hazy up here because my pad was a little bit dry. Oops, that one went into that pumpkin, but again, you know, who cares? I'll just put a shadow over the top of it. And let's see. Yeah, let's go with this size one right here. I can go with the smaller one right here. But he's kind of like facing that way. And if I do this one here, he's facing more that way if he's on the left-hand side of the paper here. Okay, let's see. I'm kind of toying with the idea of having him like right on top of the pumpkin here. Yeah, let's see how it goes. The other thought was I'd mask off the pumpkin where he's like dancing behind it, but I think I want him like on top of the pumpkin. Like that. It's a little bit more whimsical, I think. Okay, let's take a look and see where we are. Because after all, it's a reflection card, so we want to see what that looks like in terms of the reflection area. It's a little bit more dynamic, isn't it? Having that reflection down there like that. There's a little bit more movement to it too, and you have this kind of reflective distortion down here, so it kind of emphasizes depth a little bit. All right, so we'll get up there and we'll do some coloring, but let's do, while we have our stamps out here, let's add in, you can leave your, you know, lower sections just as is, but I like to add in imagery down here to kind of as a stationary type of object against those things that are reflecting down here. Not yeah, all the time, but I think it works pretty good to do that. So, okay, now here's the thing. Don't mix up the medium. When it comes to this particular thing, if you're stamping on foil with your imagery, there's a couple different inks that'll work on there. You can go with like a black brilliance, which will dry on here, but it won't adhere, so you just spray seal it down with like a workable fixative. The thing about the brilliance ink, I can do like white tones down here if I want it to stand out a little bit more. I do this blocking out, what I call it, and then I stamp over the top of it with the black, and then we kind of heat set it or something like that, or just let it air dry. And then you can wipe off, you know, whatever you don't want, and it'll wipe right off, okay? But it'll be dry on here, but then you spray seal it to lock it down. Or if you just want to go for just some imagery in this lower section right here on this foil, then use like a solvent ink, okay? Because it'll dry and adhere to this, all right? I mean, I could have stamped, you know, these images up here with StazOn as well, okay? But I don't know, I just went with the dye-based inks for up there. All right, so here's the StazOn. You got to kind of work fairly fast with StazOn because it dries so fast. So this will be kind of the other side of the, you know, this body of water, you know, like the pond. Okay. I have to get used to using StazOn every time I do it because Sometimes I hold it down for too long because I'm used to making impressions, you know, with the dye based inks or the pigment inks, stuff like that. But with the StazOn, it dries really fast. So sometimes if you hold it down longer, you might get a lighter impression rather than thinking you're getting a darker one by retaining, that pressure on it for longer. It's because it dries on the stamp like this sometimes, and you lift off and it stuck to the rubber, instead of transferring to, in this case, the foil. So, just can't keep that in mind. Or if you haven't done it before, you haven't, used StazOn on, a non-porous surface, just do a couple test prints on, a piece of scrap foil and, get the feel of it, how wet your pad is going to kind of come into play sometimes. And the larger stamps aren't too bad, if you're stamping them on here, but sometimes with the smaller stamps, if you're stamping it on here, you're stamping down and you're going with a wet medium, ink onto a non-porous surface. So it's easy to kind of skew the image as you're stamping it out. So you're stamping it, it's like, oh, I think I felt it move a little bit, because you're stamping down and it's kind of squishing the ink down a little bit, and it's easy to skew like that and get a little bit of a smear. If you do that on this type of foil, though, you take some alcohol and just wipe it right off. All right, but anyways, here's some foreground like that. You see it right there. It stamps really good on there. So instead of just that, having this blank area down here, this looks a little bit more three-dimensional now, in my opinion, like that. Okay, so see, these kind of play off those reflections up there like that. It looks a little bit more dimensional like this. Okay. All right, so let's do this too. Let's kind of frame off this lower side just a touch. I'll put in some branches right here. I'm not going to go with anything too dense in here like I often do with my reflection cards, but we'll leave things a little bit more airy and spacious. Spooky branch. Oops. I accidentally touched that, but it was already dry and it didn't even leave a mark. Oh, I get my fingerprints on here all the time, so after it dries, you take like a cotton ball or something soft and just wipe it in there. If I do it right now, I'm probably just going to get a bunch more fingerprints, so I tend to do it in the end. All right, so see this kind of framing down here like that with the branches. And you take this and a little bit more like that. All right. I mean, you can even, if you wanted to, you can put more pumpkins down here, but the pumpkins up here are going to be colored. So if you wanted to have like colored objects down here, like I was saying, you add a base layer of white with that brilliance white, and then you spray seal it to lock it down, and then you color it just lightly. And you're not coloring directly onto the brilliance, you're coloring the spray fixative, and then you lock that down again. Okay, so you can kind of sandwich in some colors in there. If you don't want just, this black impression down here that's kind of see-through like that. But I think, it serves its purpose like that pretty well. All right, so let's add in some tones in here. I think I'm just going to keep this nice and easy. Let's add in some colors, maybe with, let's go with some oranges like this, and maybe I'll go with a little bit of a tinge of some greens, but we'll keep it kind of brown, more for like the fall. I don't want it like green, like springtime grass in here. Although you could, you know, it's all whatever you want to do. But, oh, okay. So I forgot to add this in sometimes. I'll just do it all in stays on. This is the Tiny Rock Small. Okay. And I'll add a little bit more texture in here, kind of in this grassy area. And see this area right in here where it's a direct reflection of what's going on up here? Okay. I'm going to add in a bunch of these little rock textures right where, you know, the objects up top reflect down here, okay? And I'll show you what that looks like. I didn't always do this, but I like the look of it here. Okay, so we're adding a little bit more where the water's edge meets those objects that are reflecting, you know, the boulders with lichen in that case. And then I'm going for some additional impressions. So you go a little bit darker right here. And as I stamp down here, the impressions are lighter. Okay, so it's like you're transitioning your impression tones as well. And I'll put some down here too, some of these rocks. What you're doing is you're kind of essentially saying in a visual way that this body of water isn't like really deep. It's either that or it's very clear and, you know, transparent like that. Okay, so can you see all those rocks right in there? There's quite a few like that right in there and right over here. See, it's a little bit darker up top. Let me see if I can show. Here we go. A little bit darker and more condensed, and then it's lighter and then more spread out. And this is what it looks like when you do this, okay? So see, those rocks are kind of, it gives you something stationary against that movement that's in there. So it looks a little bit more, and so you have these rocks right in here reflecting over the top of that tree reflection down here. So it looks more mirrored to me like that. See this right in here? Those rocks kind of reflecting, you know, grass. I guess that's the skeleton kind of stretching out right in there. So that makes it really fun. And I mean, this is a pretty dynamic card. And it's just, that's 3 stamps right in here, just all in black ink. And you're just adding it to this up top here. I think this is a fun scene right here, but I just think this is a lot more dynamic, especially for the amount of work that this requires right here, which is really little, because we don't do any coloring on here. This is like done right here. Okay. All right, so let's go and start toning this in. We have lighting coming from the background like that, and we'll have some tones on those pumpkins in there. And then we'll add in some colors into these trees right here. Let me see. What did you say in there? Poltergeist runoff. Oh. Oh, got it, Bill. I'm slow. Hello, yawning greyhound. Yeah. The rocks are one of those things. They're like a really important element to me in scenes, and the different looks of them, and they are so versatile. You know, you can add rocks in anything. It's like even in real life, like a lot of my hikes, we're kind of based around rocks. So if I'm going to some summit somewhere, this is back when I hiked a lot. I'd go to a lot of places. I came to just start hiking in areas with a lot of rocks because when you get up to like a lookout or something like that, if you're on a perch overlooking things, you can see things a lot easier than like some summit area where you have to like circumnavigate the entire like rounded hill or something like that to get a good view of or in all directions. So one of my favorite areas is Joshua Tree National Park, which is like piles and piles of rocks everywhere. But see, even like this. Okay, so you have these rocks down here like this. I mean, we could have made it where it's just like a slope of grass coming down into here. But having that texture like that, it reads so much better having something a little bit more, darker and with more contrast right here. It makes that transition zone, I think, a lot more striking. Okay. So that being said, see these rocks right here, how it's just kind of mirrored like that? I mean, you can tell, where, the images and the reflections begin, but we want to emphasize that. So when I take this right here, what we'll do is we'll transition this going from dark to light like this, okay? So that's really easy to do. Here, I'll just start it off with some brown tones like this. See, so I'm kind of going lightly like this because I don't want to color in that whole rock. I want it to transition. So you just kind of lay down some lighter tones like this. Don't worry about getting what might be the right amount, okay? Because you can always add more to this if you want to. And this is what I'm doing on these pumpkins right here. I'm just kind of transitioning some darker tones at the base of them. And I'm going a little bit lighter with it as I go up. They're going to be more orange tones, but I know I'm going to have the bases of them a little bit darker, so I'm just doing it with a darker tone like this. All right, so that is that. Now let's move into this black right here. I'm going to use a lot of other colors in here, but I'm just kind of getting these shadows established a little bit more. Yeah, let's move this out of here so you can kind of see what's going on. So when you're transitioning your tones up like that, don't do this right here, okay? Where it's just like a hard edge like that. Have a little bit of those lighter tones like that, okay? So this is like transitioning light right here, okay? Now, if it's a box like this and it's, just a completely, flat side, then it's, it'll have a uniform shading to this. You can color it as dark as possible and it'll have just kind of this abrupt edge like that, okay? But usually I like to kind of transition things a little bit more, from one side to the next. And it just makes it a little bit more dimensional with changing light, okay? It's not as harsh like that. Same thing right here in the shadows, a little bit more. And then you transition it down, just use a lighter touch. Or you can use the same uniform touch of application, but you just, to get it darker, you just go and make more passes with it like that, okay? And then you get these rocks that look nice and dimensional. They're rounded with that type of shading on there, transition shading. Let's see. This pumpkin here I didn't mask off enough, so I'm just going to create a little bit of a shadow coming from this tree right here on the pumpkin to obscure that, you know, masking, I don't know, I guess mistake. And we have that like that, and see those stronger, bolder forms like that. They look a little bit more three-dimensional that way, having filled in like that. And as a result, and to see that water's edge is more prominent now because you've darkened in the base of those rocks like that, okay? So it's a little bit more prominent like that. And I think it gives them more, what, visual mass like that, okay? Let's get into some tones in here too. I'm kind of tempted, let's see, let's go with like a kind of a pale alcohol ink in here. I'll kind of have some of these a little bit varied so they're not like the exact same color of pumpkin. So that you scumble it to where there's a little bit of light and dark in there, which would kind of be going against a lot of, you know, other types of coloring where you're coloring in everything kind of uniformly. But this is one where, you know, you're doing it kind of with the anticipation of wanting to, kind of illuminate your pumpkin is what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to look like. So you have varied light on there. So don't color it in like as if it were like a pumpkin, you know, like an outlined style of pumpkin like this, you know, where we would color it in uniformly like that. So just, you know, my coloring on like this one right here was more like, you know, look, it's probably like this, you know, if we were to kind of remove the coloring, it would probably look something like that. Okay, this is like way too bright of an orange right here. I need like a dull orange in here. It's a little bit lighter. It's fairly bright though. Let's add that in there, like so. That looks horrific, but I'll blend it in. Ideally, I'd want like an intermediate version of between that last color that I used and this one. So what I'll do is I'll just go like this, and if I can, before it's too late, I'll go back in with a lighter tone like this one. Well, that one's a little bit dry. And I think it might have been this one right here. And I'll just blend that in a little bit more. On the semi-gloss paper, those alcohol inks do get locked down fairly quickly. But it does give you, there's a little bit of time to kind of, you know, blend it out. You can use your blender pen or something like that. I usually just go with a lighter version of the colors that I've been applying. Is anyone growing a pumpkin? Or pumpkins? Pumpkins are, I don't know if are pumpkins the fastest growing plant out there? Sometimes I've grown them in the past, and I put like a little chalk on the, you know, area where it's growing, and sometimes it seems like it grew like 4 or 5 inches in like one day. I don't know, if not more. It's really amazing. All right, so I think that is it with the alcohol inks, at least the colors that I have. And then we'll go in and I'll refine a little bit with my colored pencils. My colored pencils don't stick to that alcohol ink application really well. It works a little bit. Maybe one of my other oranges is a little bit softer. But I can get a little bit of this transferred on there. Like a dye-based ink, like a La Plume or Tombow pen would be probably better to apply on the pumpkins instead of that alcohol. The one thing about the alcohol, though, it's a little bit brighter, and it won't smear any of the water-based imagery that was already stamped down, where the Tombows or La Plumes might. I'm just bringing up the Tombows or La Plumes. Those were like the industry standard in terms of dye-based ink colors for years and years. I'm sure there's a gazillion other ones now. All right, this one's a little bit of a softer orange colored pencil, so it's really applying on there nicely. See how my pumpkins are nicely rendered right now? In terms of light and shadow, and they're getting like a little bit richer looking in terms of intensity. And now the rocks look kind of anemic. It's like they're almost not even there. So what you do is you just, the rocks don't, I mean, the other objects around those things that you kind of color, you don't need to bring them up to the same level, but you know, it'd be a good idea to bring them up a little bit closer to match it a little bit more. After all, these rocks should look like they're a little bit closer to us, so we'll bring in some other colors accordingly. All right, let's see. A little bit of red. I like those. I don't know what the types of pumpkins those are. Those slightly more super dark reddish orange ones are always kind of cool. They're usually like bigger, like it's a different variety. There used to be a rubber stamp convention that was always on or around Halloween weekend. So sometimes through the years it would fall on like Halloween night or the day. The convention that was the San Jose, California Rubberama, they called it. So some of the booths, it was pretty cool. Some of the booths would, the vendors would have kind of a Halloween type of theme to their booths. All right, so I think that is it in terms of that color. Let's bring in some, let's bring in some, I think some blue tones maybe into these rocks right here. Maybe some other tones, maybe some greenish tones. It could look like moss growing on the rocks. But see that little bluish tone right there? See it kind of, see how these look a little bit more grayscale and anemic, okay? But then you bring in a little bit of tone like that, and it starts to kind of match, a little bit closer. I'm not saying it's matching right now, just with like one tiny tinge of it, but you just bring the richness up a little bit. That's if you want integration. If you want separation, then, have one thing kind of stand out a little bit more in terms of, whatever, color scheme, values, richness, intensity and all that, which, we might want to do sometime. All right, so I'm adding this mostly in the shadow areas, okay? So I'm making my shadows a little bit richer like that. So those look a little bit more dimensional now. And then here's a lighter blue. And I'll use maybe some more of this in those lighter areas. right. I don't need to do too much. And here's the green. I think that this blue in here is okay, but I think if there's a little bit more of a greenish tinge, it'll match in there a little bit better. Or here, actually, let's do this. Let's go with a couple different greens here. A little bit of a darker one and a little bit of a lighter yellow green, okay? And I'll add some of this into my shadows right in here. Like I said, I don't want it to look like a spring green kind of carpet of grass, but I think that'll kind of it'll bring that grass around a little bit more in terms of richness. Okay, so there's that green in there now. Let's try some of that on our rocks as well. I'll add it in the shadows in some of these areas. Looks a little bit more kind of earthy, mossy like that, I think. Bright green. And yeah, I don't want to color the rocks the same thing as the grass, you know, because it'll probably stand out a little bit too much, but just getting that little hint of it in there. That looks pretty good, I think, on those rocks now. So everything that looks a little bit more integrated in there now. You can even do little things like bringing some of this green into the pumpkin. It's not going to look green because you're putting it over the top of orange, but it might kind of visually integrate a little bit, having a little bit of a slight tinge of, you know, this color that's in the surrounding areas on it, okay? So it just kind of changes, adds a little hint of that tone kind of within that color scheme, a little bit more like that, okay? I don't know if you can still, but there, you can see a little bit of greenish tinge right there, I think. All right. Let's take a look. Okay. Go like that. Let's try to layer that a little bit more, if we can. All right, so we have our colored pencils down here. Dye-based ink isn't going to work over colored pencils or alcohol inks. You know, they're in those pumpkins right there. So we're back to StazOn. Let's give it a try. We need a little bit more ink. Okay, I'm kind of framing off this lower section a little bit. That StazOn also stamped darker than the dye-based ink black. So let's take a look here. That, okay, yeah. Now, I'm thinking about those trees. I pulled out a bunch of pens, you know, to potentially add in some like fall colors into those, but I think I might like them just as is. I might add in some like fallen leaves down here later, but I think I might be changing up on that strategy and those colors here. Just, I don't know, it's like a skeleton dancing amongst like skeletal, trees, seasonally like that. So, all right, let's do this too. Okay, so this skeleton is stamped over the top of these, fairly light tones in the background. So all those tones, of course, are showing right through the open areas on the bones. So I'm just going to go in here and reclaim some of the kind of more of the white of the page right here on the skeleton so that it stands out a little bit more. Okay, it's a little bit lighter against that background, I think. Okay, and like that. And now, does anyone have that skeleton image? I have it on those Stampscapes sets, but that image has been around for, I don't know, as long as I've been in stamping in the 80s. A lot of companies had that image in their, their collection. I made it the size that I wanted, though, and then I made another size with them kind of in a different direction. Like I can have another, like a skeleton in the distance, like it'd be kind of interesting right in here, going that way. We'll leave it like this, though, just because this one's a reflection card, and I don't want to complicate things. You don't want to do too much up top here with reflection cards because you want to have like a kind of a lot of contrast between these images in here. I've made it where I've kind of filled in a lot of things in my reflection cards before, but that the reflection is stronger having contrast up in this area. See, if I fill this up with imagery or a lot more tone, it doesn't reflect as well down in this lower area. So I tend to go a little bit simpler, at least, with the certain areas in here. So, yeah, some of the most dramatic or really effective reflection cards is where you really barely doing anything. You might be a couple different images up here with, some strong silhouettes, maybe a little bit of white pigment ink or something like that. All right, let's add in some highlighting in here, I think. And let's see how this goes, okay? So this is just general lighting in here. I don't have like a moon or something like that. That's really specific to the, the light being cast in here. So I'll just do this kind of overall top lit scenario in here. So kind of in these grasses where it gets a little bit filled in with tone or texture. You can add some of that in, maybe on the tops of the pumpkins like this. Okay, we're just looking to bring some areas to life. See this pumpkin right here? We have those changes in color and shade, but now we can add in a little bit of extra texturing as well, like this. And it just kind of brings the pumpkins or the objects to life a little bit more. It makes them a little bit more dimensional. This kind of dead area right in here, you can add a few little highlights like this into your grasses or on your rocks as well. This is something like that. All right. And I'm going to do something here in that sky area. I think I'm going to do some bats right up top here, like that. I want a little bit of imagery up there, I think. This is also a perfect spot if I had like some kind of appropriate quote stamp to go right in there. But I think having some imagery up there would be kind of cool. It's like I don't know, it's like that skeleton's doing like a bat dance or something. We'll go with that. Yeah. It's raining bats. Yeah, the one that I have, I think, was from Gumbo Graphics, Linda. All right, so we have that. So let's add in some atmosphere, and that should be it, I think, here. All right. Yeah, I like those bats up there. It gives it a little bit of motion. And it seems like that skeleton, I don't know, it's like the bats are, you know, when they come out of those caves or something like that, it's like he's doing a, you know, like a conjuring dance or something like that. Oh, I was going to do something today. I don't know where I got these from. I don't know, maybe my wife gave it to me or something like that. But I have this pack of these different sponges, different size ones. And I was just going to kind of experiment with these, but also just to show you guys that, you know, you can really use kind of any type of these types of sponges. These ones are really good too because they're dense. Look at this one. It even has this kind of rounded edge to it, but you can go in and, you know, add these different tones in here, you know, with a cosmetic sponge. But these ones are pretty good because they're fairly smooth and absorbent. They must be ancient because this one's like completely stained here. So I don't know, it might be like 30 years old or something like that. Okay, let's see. Let's get to our atmospherics here. Do you see where this tree stamped out lighter? Just because my pad was dry. So sometimes when things like that happen, I just kind of, sometimes I just double down on it. You know, it was kind of an accident. And it was an undesirable whatever happening, okay? So you just kind of double down on it, and we'll push it back a little bit more with, white pigment ink here. So it's like, okay, that got lighter, so let's just go with it. So I'm going to go in here and just, see, I'm adding a little bit more pigment ink in there where it looks maybe a little bit more like it's in fog or mist or something like that, okay? Now let's do it across this area right here. Okay, see this area of light right there? I didn't plan for that. It just, that's the way that streaky area kind of developed. So you just kind of utilize a lot of times what, the things that kind of happen in your piece. So you kind of start listening to your piece, and, you might have certain intentions for a certain thing, but if it doesn't happen like that, you can just kind of tweak it a little bit more. So see this tree, I think that looks pretty good in here. So we have a little bit dark, I have white, darker, white like that, you know what I mean? It's kind of pushing it back in the distance, and it's giving this piece a little bit more, whatever, space, whatever you want to call it. A little bit more atmosphere like that. Okay. Now let's do something right over here too. Let's do this. You know how that tree goes right? I mean, it's supposed to be behind the pumpkins, okay? But let's do this right here. I'm going to create a little bit more space in between. And that pumpkin like stamped clear down into that pumpkin because, you know what I mean? I didn't mask it high enough, and I don't know, it just went in there. So I'm going to create space between that tree and my pumpkins, and transition it a little bit. Add a little bit more down like this. Then as you kind of move up, it's drier on here, so it's adding less ink like that. So see, it pushed that tree back in the distance a little bit. It looks a little bit weird, so we'll put in a little bit more, changes in value, in the rest of the, or different parts of the tree as well, just so that it matches this bottom part a little bit more, okay? I didn't see it right here. This is just a little subtle thing, but here's this kind of branch. It's like going and touching that skeleton right in the lower extremities. So here I'll just kind of push this back in the distance a little bit more by just making it lighter. Okay. I mean, not that that bothered me or anything like that. I think it was fine, but we'll just kind of, add a little bit of those atmospherics to it like that, and see it's like a little bit more distant now. Let's add some of this fog or lighting, like it right in here. See, all these pumpkins are like on the same, they're all of the same kind of look in terms of value and lighting and everything like that. So here's a good area right here. It's kind of lighter right in here, so this would be a good opportunity to just kind of add some more light right on there. So we have this pumpkin right here that's kind of in this lighting a little bit more. So you add this where light meets darker. I mean, there's opportunities all over in here, like this one, if we wanted to, but this one right here, texturally, it just looks a little bit different than this one now, so it just adds a little bit of variety to it. If you add it in there and you don't like it, just take it and wipe it right off, because it'll come right off for you if you need it to, or you want it to. Or if it's too light and you just want it a little bit darker, then, take off some of it. I'll try to get some of this in between this rock and this pumpkin right here, and I'll put a little bit of fog at the base of the pumpkin. So remember, you just do this with the use of a very dry applicator like this, okay? And then it becomes very, very easy to do. And it's very controlled because you're hardly adding any paint, with each tap. It's like that little haze down there was like 20 taps or something like that, just light ones. And if you want to add more, you just concentrate it a little bit more. So now you have these kind of glowing pumpkins now. Oh, okay, so we have this water's edge, right? Like this. Okay. I mean, it looks kind of cool to do some of that kind of mist right at the water's edge sometime. Okay. See, you got that light, it's kind of glowing down in there in the reflection too. But I'll add it. Let's see. Let's add it right around in here. And it's like that fog or mist, kind of rising from the surface of a lake or pond or something like that. See, it's a little bit more diffused like that. You can see how that looks right in here. Oh, one thing that I forgot is when we're doing this now, see, this looks a certain way like this, okay? But then when you put this down here, it's a little bit more illuminated because you have the light reflecting, light hitting it like this, but it's also reflecting off of this, what represents the water's surface like that. So see this right down here? That changes that little edge of that water a little bit. Then this, I think you put a little bit there, none here, and a little bit more over here if you want to. Let's try that. This gets a little bit busy in here with all my reeds that I stamped out, so I can just kind of diffuse them a little bit and get a little bit more of a textural change right in here. Okay, so it looks like that now right in there. All right. Oh, one of the things that I was looking at was I stamped that same bat stamp like 4 times. You can see it because that prominent larger bat is right there. So let me do something right here. I'm going to get rid of, I'm not going to get rid of, but I'm going to put a little bit of this over some of these bats in here. Oh, I need to be careful about those bats because they're still a little bit moist, having just stamped them. I'll do that later. Okay, I'm going to go and add in a little bit of touches of some white pigmenting, but they're a little bit wet, so when I stamp over that, or when I tap over that, it's kind of smearing them a touch, so I need to be careful about that and not do that. All right. I think that is about it. I do want to add in some little final touches in here with those leaves. Those leaves, 3-dimensional leaves, modeler's leaves, are really fun to add like down in this water area. Like especially up here where it's just kind of like dark on dark and real textural. But the way that those rocks work, on our silver foil like that in those areas, adding those little leaves in here adds something nice and light, and it looks a lot more dimensional too. And I'll put some like floating around in a little current right here or something like that. And I'll put some like right along the water's edge, maybe a couple up here. That being said, they are 3-dimensional. This doesn't close really like flat, anymore. But if you mail something like this off to someone, what you do is you just, I don't know, you can put anything in there, like a paper towel like this in between would be sufficient. It'll probably go through some kind of auto sorter, but those leaves they're flat enough where it's not going to be any kind of problem with it. But anyway, this would be a good spot for like some other quote out here. You can put a happy Halloween or boo, or I don't know, you can do something it talks about the spirit of fall or whatever. And, you know, I think this makes for a pretty dramatic kind of reveal like that. So, yeah. But anyways, that's the first... I was looking at this in the background. This might look good with some of those tombstones back there. Those really small ones. I might tweak this a little bit. I'm going to give it a, I don't know, whatever, a day or a couple hours to look at and decide. But I think the leaves and maybe one or two other things in here just to add in like a couple little subtle touches in here, or detailed touches might look kind of interesting. But anyway, I'm looking at those pumpkins. I think the pumpkins work pretty decent in terms of having some kind of reflective element in there like that. And I don't know, with everything that's going on in this top section, like I said, I really like throwing on this just mirrored area there. Just to, I don't know, I think it adds up more than whatever the sum of their totals. It's like two of these scenes, but you get a little bit more of this kind of movement of these objects against those reflections down there. I just think it looks like a, I don't know, to me it's like this pseudo, I don't know, almost like a diorama in some ways. I think it looks really quite dimensional like this without doing really anything that's like a traditional three-dimensional type of technique in stamping. You know what I mean? Building things out and pop dots and all that stuff, which, you know, he can use in here, but we're not doing any of those types of cuts and folds where, you know, things kind of pop out. And I love that stuff, but this is kind of an easy way to do, you know, a three-dimensional type of scenario using just two-dimensional techniques and just taking advantage of the natural card-based fold in it. And usually people, when they put this on display, they'll display it like this, you know, at like a 45-degree angle, or if they have it like a mantle or something like that, you know. Or they can just, you know, have it as a card, and someone comes over and you can say, hey, open that card right there. So it's like this little reveal, and you get this light kind of coming out of the card because that reflective foil. This one right here might have looked good too, reflecting into gold foil as well. Here I don't have the object stamped on this one, but let's just out of curiosity take a look and see what gold foil would look like. Let me see. This one's all dusty, but this is gold foil like this. Maybe not. Maybe on this one right here, if I went like with a little bit of a darker kind of sky, that would look good. But yeah, I think the silver looks a little bit better. The silver matches this kind of bluish tone one. This one right here would look good if you did like a sunset colors in here, I think, with the same type of thing, but darker to lighter like that. But that would be, that would be the gold foil right here. This gold foil is all curling on me, so yeah, I think the silver is more effective with this one. I use the gold foil with like warmer tones typically, and kind of the colors of my sky usually. I don't know about dictate, but I don't know, they influence my selection of the reflected area. I use like silver and gold. I don't think I've tried reflecting into like light blue foil, you know, mirrored foils, or like the red one or something like that. The red's almost too dark. You know, not too much would reflect down in there. So yeah, it's silver and gold for the most part. Hello, Patty. Glad you like it, Linda. Hello, Cecile. Happy Halloween to everyone. We got a couple more days before October, but yeah, having fun here with this type of thing. This type of little structure right here, if you haven't seen these cards before, are not just for Halloween scenarios like that, but I would always recommend trying these reflection cards. A lot of you have, you know, gold or silver foil on you, you know, in your paper collections already. You know, might even just be a couple pieces, but I would give it a try. It really makes for some dynamic pieces. And a lot of people are kind of like, hey, what do you stamp on the outside then? Or where are the gradients? You just, some people call it an inside out card where you do the gradients on the outside or something like that. Or, it'd be kind of fun. You can take this and you can say like Happy Halloween here or whatever. And you can stamp out like a couple reverse impressions maybe of the pumpkin or something like that, or like a bat or something like that. And then they can open it up and, it reveals the interior and you can have some of that, whatever, visual continuity going on between one of these impressions on the outside, or, you know what I mean? So it kind of carries on to the inside, or it gives people a little bit of a hint, maybe, of the content of the piece. And yeah. All right, so yeah, I'll do a couple little tweaks on here in a real quick video next time, maybe. Unless I wanted to stamp out something else, but I think I want to add in those little leaves down here and see what that looks like. All right. So, yeah, the pumpkin dance reflection card. Yeah. So those reflection cards are really fun. These remind me, I've mentioned this a lot of times before, but these remind me of that feeling of, my mom made these, like these sugar eggs, but you look inside and there was like this whole little scene in there, So it's like looking through something, I think, into something. Especially when you open up that card, there's like whatever, an anticipation, and it looks real three-dimensional like that too, so... yeah. This would be cool too if we just stamped all these images out on a blank piece of paper, and then we put that moon up here and that glow-in-the-dark sticker paper. But so everything would be in reverse on black, and I think, I don't know, I haven't done like a reverse, impression type of card. I don't think as a reflection card scenario. I don't know, would it be too dark? I don't know, we'll have to give that a try, but that something like that would go really fast because you just stamped everything in white, and just adding that little moon up there. So might be kind of interesting. We'll try that out sometime. Oh, yeah. You can always alter those little impression types of things, Nuala. Or, if it's too harsh, we could have just stamped like these reeds. You put those reeds in front of the pumpkin and say, nothing here to see. Move it along, nothing here to see. And just kind of obscure things too. Yeah. All right, Bill. Try a reflection card sometime. Use that real kind of that crazy paper that you sent to me that I haven't tried out yet. But that would be pretty interesting. It might look like a kaleidoscope. Bill sent me this paper that's like, I forget what type of technique they used on there, but it's like super, super bright tones. And I don't know, could look like one of those old kaleidoscope things where you're twirling that thing around, but getting all this movement and stuff like that. You can hypnotize people with it, Bill, or with your card. All right, thanks everyone. Have a great rest of evening.